Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards here on a Thursday afternoon. Drew Pian here with Brandon Kokorian. It's been about 2 weeks since the podcast studio. Brandon, how's it going and how does it feel to be back?
Feels good to be back. It's better than being over Zoom. Everything's been good. Just excited to get into this episode.
Yeah, I guess biggest news, pretty recently, like within the past few hours-ish, Aldridge retired from the NBA. Basically just came down to, he made a big post about it, but it basically just was, he had like some heart problem during the game on April 10th, and he decided to just prioritize his health, and he just called it quits. What does it mean for the Nets? Not all that much. They're still going to be the favorites to win it all. Obviously, losing Aldridge is losing a really good role player, but I think that's probably about all he was going to be. He wasn't all that in any of the games. But yeah, it was probably he was probably maybe their fifth best player. Maybe he might have been their fourth. I don't really know, but
Yeah, talking about the heart thing that he's had. He's had that for a couple of years, but I guess they said something came up on like April 10th, that forced him to retire. Because I know like he had it a couple of years ago and he had to miss a couple of games, but I guess it came back. But for the Nets, he was probably, I definitely say, could he have been in on their closing five to end the game? Possibly. Obviously, you'd have Kyrie, Harden, Joe Harris, KD. So that's obviously the four you'd have. And then would it be Griffin? Would it be Aldridge? I wouldn't expect Jordan to be out there. Would like Bruce Brown be out there? Then KD would play the five. Those are questions that you could have asked, when you got to the playoffs. But now with Aldridge not being there, I guess it's between Griffin and Brown to be in that fifth spot in your closing five. So, I guess it somewhat matters in that. Obviously, he has the experience. He's been in multiple playoff series before. He's not going to, give you 20 points per game like he did for his career, but he could give you 10 to 12 points and be a solid rebounder and at least a decent defender against some bigs. So I guess you're losing that, but, I wouldn't say it's a terrible loss. I think it's something that they could easily get over. We saw they played the Sixers. What was it, last night? And they were missing, only Kyrie was playing, no KD, no Harden. Obviously, Aldridge didn't play. Griffin, he didn't play. And, they were losing the entire game, but they did come back and they almost won, which is pretty impressive. So if they're going to do that against the Sixers, who right now are technically the best team in the East, without all those players, I feel pretty confident about them in the playoffs, even if Aldridge isn't going to be there.
yeah, anybody who picked the Nets to win and are picking the Nets to win, this doesn't change your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Uh, but and I think one thing is, Aldridge could have been a guy who in a playoff series, one game or two games gives you like 20 points, and losing that, you could say, means a lot to lose. But on this particular team with Harden, KD, and Kyrie, they already have enough. Like they're not gonna need that guy, that role player, to drop 20 in that one game that gives them the edge in the series. They just won't need it. So I don't think that losing Aldridge is that big. If he was a defensive-minded player who was a guy who could grab key stops in big games, I'd say that might be a bigger loss. But, I just don't think they really, really need what Aldridge might be, like, big for in the playoffs.
Yeah, KD, Kyrie, and Harden can all give you 30 plus in any game that you want. They could all go for 30. And then you have Harris, who can easily give you 20. And then you have, role players who all they have to do is basically just when they get the ball shoot a three, or if someone's going to drive and drop it off to you like a center like Jordan or Claxton like they have. So, yeah, I don't think it's a terrible loss. But, yeah, in a key playoff series where you need an experienced guy who knows what he's doing and he's not going to make a big mistake in a big-time decision, I think that's valuable. So I guess you won't have that, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. I think when you have KD, Kyrie, and Harden, who are going to have the ball, 95% of the time, I trust those guys a lot with the ball. So I'm not exactly worried about it, but it could come back maybe in a playoff series, but I don't think it will.
Yeah, I've not been the biggest Nets guy, that's for sure, but I don't know. This Aldridge loss doesn't mean too much. They didn't have him for too long to like really have this mess up chemistry at all or anything like that. So I don't think it's a big loss. If they're going to win the East and win the finals, they're probably going to do it with or without Aldridge. If they lose in whatever series, they're probably going to lose with or without Aldridge as well. So, yeah. Uh, Other news though, last night, I mean, that buzzer beater by Luka Doncic was. I mean, what were your initial reactions from first the missed free throws, I mean, and then second, Doncic's shot.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching it live, and I mean, the Grizzlies were up 2 point. It was 113, 111. Allen gets fouled, and he was a 91% free throw shooter for this year, and I know he's been a pretty good free throw shooter throughout his career. So I was like, yeah, this game's probably over. Even if he, makes just 1 out of 2, even though you're 91%, you'd think you'd make both. Like, I still thought the game was over. He misses both, which was completely surprising. Then you come back, and that it's not even like a normal type three or even just a normal shot. It's a pump fake, and then he's slipping through 2 guys and shooting it like a floater. That was one of the craziest shots I've probably seen the last couple of years, just the type of shot it was. I didn't even think it was a three-pointer. I thought his foot was on the line when I watched it live. Somehow he was still behind it. So, yeah, it was a crazy shot. And it was honestly a pretty big game because, I mean, the Mavs have 2 more wins than the Grizzlies going into that game. So, and the Mavs are only the 7 seed right now. So if the Grizzlies won that game, they would be 1 game back, and obviously they would have won a game head to head. So it was actually a pretty important game in terms of being in the play-in tournament and then not being in the play-in tournament. So it was all around. It was an insane shot and a crazy game.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge game for the Grizzlies. I mean, especially for the Grizzlies, because I think for the Mavericks, I expect them to be in the play-in tournament, but the Grizzlies, they could easily not get into the play-in tournament, and this could be a game that costs them. I mean, I don't expect the Mavericks to be the 10 seed and the Grizzlies be 11 seed, and like this head-to-head be what breaks it, but I mean, the Western Conference is just so close that this game could definitely matter. I mean, the Pelicans could squeeze up into that play-in tournament, the Grizzlies could easily fall out, and this game could easily be the difference maker, and it's a huge loss for the Grizzlies. Allen needs to make those free throws. It was bad, but I mean, for the Mavericks at least, I mean, that's obviously a huge win. I mean, it just puts you closer and closer to not having to be in that play-in tournament, and even if they were, it still gives them a game in the race just to not be out of the playoffs, which I mean, they're not gonna not make the playoffs, but still.
I mean, yeah, the Mavs, I mean, they're 1 game back of Portland, who's the 6th seed right now. So if they can just get to that 6th seed, you don't even have to worry about the play-in tournament, which is exactly what you want. You don't want to have to do those 2 games where if you just have a bad shooting night, then you could easily lose and you're out of the playoffs. But I mean, speaking of Memphis, I mean, they have 27 wins. Golden State is 27, San Antonio is 26, and then New Orleans is 25. So they could easily fall out to that 10 seed where New Orleans is right now, or that 11 seed, and they would be completely out of the play-in tournament. So that was a huge game. It was a complete swing because if the Grizzlies win that game, then they have more of a shot of maybe even catching up to that 6 seed. I don't think they would have, but they at least had a shot. Now it's looking more likely that they could easily fall down to all the way to the 11th seed. So it's just a huge swing of events.
Out of Memphis, Golden State, San Antonio, and New Orleans, which team rank those teams? One of them, in all likelihood, won't make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to say I have the most faith in either Golden State or Memphis. San Antonio, I just don't think it's that good of a team. I think they're just really well coached, which obviously can go a long way, but I just don't think they're good enough to the last stretch of the season, which there's not that many games left in the season, so this is kind of the final stretch. I just don't really trust them, I guess I'd say. New Orleans, I would like to pick them, but they're just so inconsistent. I mean, their defense is it's terrible, and then obviously you have Zion and Ingram, but it just seems like something's wrong with that team, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. You'd think they'd be way better than 25-30, which they are. So I'd probably say Golden State or Memphis. The only problem is that Golden State, if Curry doesn't have a great game, they're most likely losing. So, and while Memphis, I don't exactly love their team, but they're more of a team, a team setting, if everyone kind of contributes, where Golden State's more, if Curry drops 30 plus, they'll most likely win, unless they're playing like a really good team. So I'd probably say one of those teams. If I had to choose one, I guess I'd say Memphis just because I trust the team more than one player, but I'm not even sure.
Well, which would you rank last? I mean, because one of them won't make the play-in. So.
I would rank San Antonio last. I just trust the talent of New Orleans more, and if their defense can be better somewhat, then I think they're just a better team than San Antonio. So I'd probably say have the Spurs be that 11 seed.
Yeah, I mean, San Antonio is probably my least favorite of those four as well. I just don't trust them, and especially in a playing environment specifically. I mean, they just don't have a player that I can depend on to be that guy that makes sure it's a close game, and like, because I know if Curry's in a playing game, I don't envision Curry only dropping 15 and the Golden State Warriors just flaking out like that. The Spurs, there's really nobody that I can trust to be the go-to guy on that team. And if they don't have like a good game as a team, they're just not going to do it. And for me, yeah, I don't know. I trust the Warriors. I trust Memphis. The Pelicans, I trust more than the Spurs, that's for sure. But I mean, if I had to pick, I don't think the Spurs make the play-in tournament. But I mean, who knows? I mean, they definitely had a better start than they're playing now. But I mean, yeah, there's 20 games left in the season right now, so.
Yeah, a little less than 20 games left. So, it's it's the final stretch. I mean, so we'll see. New Orleans is 1 game back, or technically 2 games back of San Antonio. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, I think we're both on the same page in that we have the Spurs being out of the play-in tournament.
On the Eastern side, I mean, not too much has changed. It's the 76ers, it's the Nets, it's the Bucks. Those teams are going to be the top 3 seeds. I'd be willing to bet a lot of money on that. I mean, the odds wouldn't be great, but I mean, those are going to be the top 3 teams. Atlanta's taken a jump. They're the 4 seed. I mean, they've been playing a lot better than they were earlier in the year, for sure. But other than that, it's basically the same East that it's been, which is seeds 4 through basically 8 are within a few games of each other, and some teams have been playing a little bit better as of recently. Some have been dropping off. I mean, the Celtics have been playing slightly better, but it's still the same team where you have Tatum, you have Brown, but there's so much inconsistency. Sometimes they're just gonna lose and they're gonna look horrible, and some nights they're gonna look great, and some nights Tatum's gonna drop 53, and some nights they're just gonna lose, and sometimes they're gonna beat Denver in the fourth quarter 40-8, and then I don't trust that Celtics team at all. I mean, as far as the Eastern Conference is concerned, and I guess you could technically say it's the same with the West, but seeds 4 through 10 just don't matter because I don't give any of them much of a chance to beat any of the top 3 seeds.
Yeah, the only team I'd say that is somewhat of a chance would be Miami. They're out of all those teams, Celtics, Atlanta, New York, Miami, Charlotte, and then kind of get to the bottom teams. I'd say out of those teams, definitely Miami. Obviously, they went to the finals last year, but if you were to match them up against Philly, Brooklyn, or Milwaukee, I think they wouldn't have a good chance, but like a favorable chance, but they would definitely be closer than those other teams, I'd say. I guess the Celtics would probably be the second best team against those, but I just don't think the Celtics match up against these teams. It's something about them when they play. Maybe the Sixers. It seems like they've always had success against the Sixers, but even then, the Celtics team just seems broken, even though they've been playing better lately. But if I would be scared of Miami if I was one of those top 3 seeds. Right now, Miami's the 7 seed, so they played Brooklyn. I don't think they'd beat Brooklyn in the first round, but if they had to see one of those teams in the second round, I'd definitely be scared of Miami. I would definitely pick one of those top 3 teams, but it would be a tough series, I'd say.
Miami is a scary team as a 7 seed. I mean,
yeah.
100%.
So if they can get to that 5 seed and play like Boston or Atlanta, and then they had to play whoever the 1 seed was. That would just be a tough matchup in that second round.
No, definitely. But yeah, I mean, it's still the same East. I mean, we've got obviously. I mean, I'll go back to my Raptors prediction early in the year when I predicted them to be the second seed. That's probably the worst prediction that I can think off the top of my head from that series, but. I
I had the Rockets being a 5 seed. So.
Yeah, but that was contingent on Harden being a part of the team. So
yeah.
It's like slightly different. I mean, I picked the Raptors like as themselves to actually be the second seed. Probably a bad pick, but.
I guess, we talked about the play-in tournament in the West. I guess how about the East? You have Miami at the 7 seed, Charlotte at the 8 seed, and then you have Indiana, Chicago, Toronto, Washington, and I guess I'll throw Cleveland in there, but I don't think they'll actually have a real chance. So I guess I'm saying Miami, Charlotte, Indiana, Chicago, Toronto, and Washington. So 2 teams have to be left out.
I mean, right now I'd probably leave out Washington, and then I'd probably leave out Chicago, but I'm not all too sure. It could really be anybody. I just know there's no way. I don't see the Miami Heat if they were in the play-in tournament. I don't see the Miami Heat losing. I don't see. I mean, Charlotte could lose. I think Charlotte's a pretty good team. Obviously, not having LaMelo is does definitely hurt, but I mean, I think Charlotte's still a better team than Chicago and Toronto and definitely Washington. Indiana, I still like them more than Chicago, Toronto, Washington. I don't know. I mean, out of those teams, Miami is definitely the best. I would put the Pacers as my second best. I'd probably have the Hornets as the third. Then I'd probably go Toronto fourth, Chicago fifth, Washington sixth.
Yeah, I would definitely have Chicago out. They've lost 4 in a row ever since that Vooch trade. I think they're 3-8. They just haven't been playing well. Maybe that's because they're trying to add him into the offense, and maybe they just haven't got used to him yet. So maybe they go on a little hot streak. But I just don't think they're that good of a team, honestly. So I'd probably have them out, and then I'd say it's between Washington and Toronto. I mean, Indiana is 26 wins, and then it goes down to Chicago at 22. So I don't see a team really catching up to Indiana, but just to get to that 10 seed. I would say it's between Toronto and Washington. I'd like to say Toronto because they've just been so experienced. I mean, you still have Lowry, Siakam, and Anunoby. I mean, you still have guys who were on that championship team. And obviously, Gary Trent's been really good since they got him from Portland. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be between Toronto and Washington, I'd say. Washington's been playing a lot better recently. They've been getting more healthy. So I think it's going to come down probably to the last 2 games, maybe even the last game of the season to see who gets that 10 seed.
It's going to be a close race, and I still think Chicago will be in it. I mean, Levine and Vucevic alone, just themselves as players, that alone puts them as a good enough team to at least be in that contention for that 10 seed. I don't know if they end up getting it, but yeah, the East. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seeds, those teams, if those were teams in the West, they would be 12, 13, 14, and 15 seeds, basically.
Yeah, if they were in the West, they'd be, I mean, Sacramento is 22 wins, and they're the 11 seed right now. So, or they're the 12 seed. So they'd be 13, 14, 15, in that area.
Yeah, just talent alone, regardless of the record, I don't think they're better than, I think they're around that. I would put Toronto and Chicago, and I'd probably put Indiana and Charlotte around that Kings territory. I don't think they'd be better than the Pelicans or the Warriors. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong on that. I mean, the Knicks are still in the play-in tournament discussion, even though they're technically not in the play-in tournament right now. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how you feel about the Knicks as a Knicks fan right now.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 4 in a row. They weren't playing so great before that, but I mean, I think it's a win-win no matter what. If they just make the playoffs normally, obviously that's a win, or if they even get in the play-in tournament for the season that they're having. I mean, they're 29 and 27. I don't think anyone could have thought they'd be over 500 with 16 to 20 games left in the season. So yeah, I mean, if they have to play in the play-in tournament, which it seems like they might, I feel like Miami will probably catch them. They're only half a game behind New York, so I feel like Miami will probably jump up to that 6th seed and push New York into that play-in tournament. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a win no matter what happens with the Knicks.
Yeah, so I mean, so as far as your finals matchups concerned, do you still have Brooklyn and LA?
I would say yes, but I'd say there's a caution on it. Definitely Brooklyn. There's no doubt about that. I think they're definitely the favorite out of the East. But the Lakers, I mean, they're just not healthy right now, so we don't know what exactly they're going to look like. I think they said Anthony Davis is coming back. I think it was a couple days ago, 7 to 10 days. So he should be back next week. And then LeBron was I think a week after that. So they're basically just getting them ready for the playoffs. A couple exhibition games kind of at the end of the regular season. So if they're healthy, as long as they're at least 85 to 90% healthy, I'd still go with the Lakers. But if they're not going to be healthy or just something's off with their team in the first couple games, it's definitely going to be tough to pick them because, the West is tough. I mean, I don't know how I feel about Utah exactly being a real threat, but, I mean, you can't argue with them being 41 and 14. The Suns have played really well. The Clippers have played really well these last 2 weeks. And then Denver, obviously, Jamal Murray tore his ACL. We didn't mention that, but they're probably going to be out of it. Just if you lose a guy like that.
They're still going to be competitive, though. I mean,
yeah, but they won't be a threat to get to the finals, though.
Not a finals threat. I don't even know that they were a finals threat, but no, definitely. If I had to pick from the West, I think I still go Lakers, but the Western I mean, honestly, usually the first round of playoff series in the NBA are horrible and garbage, and like there's maybe one or two series that are actually worth a watch. This year, in the West alone, I mean, honestly, I'm probably gonna watch. I mean, I'm gonna watch all the series regardless, but like they're gonna be worth watching. Like the 6 and the 3 seed is gonna be worth watching. 2 and 7 is still gonna be worth watching. I mean, if it's Phoenix and Dallas in the first round,
Yeah.
I don't think the Suns are like heavy favorites in that series. Whereas, like, name the last 7 seed to beat a 2 seed in the playoffs. I mean, that rarely happens unless like Derrick Rose tears his ACL and something like that. And then I mean, like Spurs.
The Spurs. Yeah, I was gonna say Spurs, Grizzlies. Yeah. Not. It does not happen that often though. No.
Yeah. So I mean, it's gonna be a very exciting playoff. I mean, I still put the Clippers up there. I still put the Clippers as my second best team in the West. Kawhi, George, I think that team is still great. I mean, adding Rondo is huge. I think you can't underestimate the leadership that he gives to that team, just because, I mean, you're not getting it from really Kawhi or George. They're two superstars that, and this is arguably a good thing, but on the Clippers it's been a bad thing. It's just they're two superstars that don't have like the biggest, I don't want to say egos, but they're not those big alpha males in the locker room. And typically if you get more than one of those guys in the locker room, it's not going to be great, but they haven't really had that guy. And I think Rondo kind of gives that leadership and that edge and that winning culture, what the Clippers need, because not only did they choke last season, but they just historically they're just not a winning franchise. So I think that's a huge pickup for the Clippers. I think they're my second best team. I still think the Clippers are better than the Jazz and the Suns.
Yeah, definitely. I have the Clippers as my second best team too, and that addition of Rondo is just huge. I mean, they've won 7 straight. That's basically since they got him, or at least when he started playing for them. And you can just tell they're just a different team. I mean, they were definitely good before Rondo, but they're just a much better team overall with him. George is having a great year this year, and it's been pretty underrated, obviously, because all the jokes and everything like that from the playoffs. But he's having a really good year. Obviously, Kawhi's doing what Kawhi does. As long as it translates to the playoffs, and again, it will be a tough playoffs in the West, but as long as they don't face the Lakers in the second round, I think they have a real shot at getting to that Western Conference Finals. And depending on how the Lakers play, that series would be a really good series. And I could easily see the Clippers winning if the Lakers aren't 100% healthy.
I mean, as weird as it sounds, you may, as the Clippers, want to play the Lakers in the first round, especially if you're going to get AD having only played the last, probably 15 games of the regular season, and LeBron may only play the last 10. They might not the chemistry might not be there. And if you're going to get the Lakers at any time in the postseason, you may just say, all right, we'll take the Lakers in the first round, get it out of the way. If we win, I mean, that's huge. We have so much momentum going with us, and we probably get the Lakers at their worst time. You can't pick, but
yeah,
the Lakers might be the 6th seed when all is said and done, or the Clippers might be the 4th seed when all is said and done. So it's not crazy to say that they might face each other in the first round. And I want LA. I want the Los Angeles head-to-head matchup in the playoffs. We didn't get it last year. If we don't get it this year, I'll be kind of sad. And if they have to face each other in the conference finals for us to get it, that's not a guarantee by any means. I mean, Phoenix. I don't love Phoenix and I don't love Utah, but Phoenix and Utah could beat out both LA teams in a series. It would definitely surprise me, but it wouldn't like shock me. So I don't know. I think the Nuggets beating the Clippers last year would be more surprising than if the Suns beat the Clippers this year. But
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Suns beat either the Lakers or the Clippers. But I definitely wouldn't expect it, I guess I would say. But yeah, I mean, the Suns are just a weird team. It's just like they've never been in the playoffs, so we don't know how they'll perform. Obviously, they have CP3, but it's not like he's been great in the playoffs either. I mean, he's had a couple choke moments when he was with the Clippers. Obviously, with the Rockets, he had the injury. I guess you can't blame him for that, but he did get injured. And he's never even been – I guess he's been to a Western Conference Finals now, but even before he went to the Rockets with Harden, he hadn't even been to one. So they're a weird team. I definitely go Clippers, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Suns had beat them.
Yeah. I guess we'll switch off to baseball. Basically, just do the same thing, just recap everything we've missed. But, what are your initial reactions from just the start of the regular season, and I guess give your Yankees bit as they're not.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees have not started off great. I mean, we're last in the division. Obviously, it's only been 12 games, but we're 5-7. The pitching has just not been great. Cole's been amazing. I think he's a 1.47 ERA, but Kluber, Tyone, those are two, in quotations, big signings in the offseason to help our rotation. They just haven't really worked out yet. I think Kluber will work out somewhat. He usually starts off slow to start his seasons and usually gets into shape kind of after May. So I guess I'm not worried right now. But, he only pitched 1 inning last year. Tyone pitched 0 innings last year. Herman, who was supposed to come back, he was coming back for this year. He pitched no innings last year also. So 3 out of our 5 people in our rotation didn't, actually really 4, because Jordan Montgomery also, even though he's been pretty good. But technically 4 of our 5 starters in our rotation didn't pitch one. They pitched 1 inning combined last year. So, I mean, that's a problem because it's, you're playing a full 162 this season, so you need to have long arms and you need guys to just perform well. So if they don't pitch in over a year, they're just not going to perform well, which is what you're seeing. So am I worried right now? I mean, no, because it's just such a long season. But if it doesn't get better, then we're gonna have to make additions. Or if we don't, then I don't know how I'd feel about this team in the playoffs if the pitching just doesn't get better from the guys that we have right now. So it's I'm not worried, but it's I could start getting worried if by May or June the pitching just hasn't been better.
I mean, in your opinion, what's the biggest surprise team so far?
I mean, the Red Sox, they've won 9 straight. I don't exactly see them being a playoff team this season, but it's obviously hard to win 9 straight. I mean, they did get swept by the Orioles at home to start the season, so I don't know what that was, if that's really who they will be, or if that was just a misstep, I guess. But they've been surprising. I guess you could say, the Reds have been somewhat surprising. That division's just a really weird division. I think the Cardinals are the favorites, but every team seems to be about the same. They're 7-5, and they just lost 2 straight, so they were 7-3 to start the season. But yeah, I think every team's kind of working out. I guess the Central's a little surprising with the White Sox being 6-6, but I think the better teams will just eventually win out their divisions, like the Yankees, the White Sox, the Cardinals. So I guess so far those teams have been surprising, but I think in the long run, the better teams will prevail.
Yeah, I would say that the Red Sox have been they've been a surprise team, and when they were swept by the Orioles and after the first 3 games of the season, I was like, all right, well, I'm not surprised. The Red Sox are going to be horrible, and it's going to be a fun MLB season to listen to the Red Sox fans, but they've won 9 straight. They've looked good. I don't see it keeping up. They've had incredible hitting. Obviously, to win 9 straight, the pitching has to be good too. They're not going to keep up with the 9-3 pace, but I think they'll be better than I thought they were going to be. I didn't think they were going to be a 500 team. They probably will be a 500 team.
Yeah,
I think they'll be a 500 team. So.
And the question is going to be their pitching. I think their offense last year was just. I think they were just stuck, honestly. I don't even really know what word to use. But, Martinez has been amazing. Bogarts, Devers, Verdugo. I feel like their bats will be good. It's just their pitching. Obviously, you get Sale back, but what's he going to look like? But then even after that, you have Rodriguez and Evaldi. I just don't know if those guys are true 2s and 3s on a, at least what you think could be a playoff team. Again, I don't think that, but definitely obviously. Yeah, they're decent pitchers. I just don't think they're great, obviously, but yeah, well, I think their bats will definitely die down, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they've been such a pleasant surprise for me that I'm very excited about it. But
well, I guess how do you feel about your Nationals for 3-6 so far?
They've been horrible. There's nobody around the bush, and I still think they've got a chance. The NL East right now is like flip flopped as to how I thought it was going to be. The Braves are 4-8, the Nationals are 3-6. I still think the Braves are going to win the division. Acuna is. I don't know if he's the MVP favorite right now. It's been 12 games, so there's no favorite. But Acuna's been great. I don't know. It's too hard to read too much into it. I still think the pitching is gonna be there. The hitting should be there. I don't think their lineup is very deep, but Soto himself should be good enough, and their lineup's not garbage. The pitching should be there. We'll see. The NL East is just so competitive that if they dig themselves into an early hole, like if they're looking at like, I don't know, like 8-15. What were they that championship year? I forget. They kept saying it every like 2 seconds.
Yeah, they're
19-21 or something.
19-31 maybe. I think that's what it was. Something like that.
It was something like that. And I mean, if they dig themselves into a hole like that, I don't see themselves digging themselves out again like they were able to in their championship year. And that's going to be tough because the NL East is just so difficult that they might just dig themselves into an early hole and not be able to get themselves out. But I'm not too worried as a Nationals fan. I still think they're going to be fine. I still think the Braves are going to be fine. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about the Braves. I think I had them winning the division also. I had the Nationals making the playoffs. I really liked their team going into the season. I think their pitching just has to be better. I mean, Soto, he's batting .375. He has 7 RBIs already. I mean, I'm not, I don't think you should be worried about him. But yeah, I think the Mets, I think the Phillies and the Marlins. I'm just not. Obviously, the Marlins are most likely going to finish in last, but I think the Phillies. I don't really like them that much. It's just something about them. I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, they have Nola and Wheeler, so that's a pretty good 1-2 in your rotation. But after that, it's a little dicey. And their bullpen has been really good so far this year. They definitely made upgrades to it, but we'll see how it actually holds up. They really don't have like a true like bullpen guy who's like just a shutdown guy. They really don't have that. So we'll see if it actually holds up over the course of 162. And then the Mets, I mean, their offense, I mean, obviously DeGrom's been amazing. I mean, they've lost both games that he started, even though I think he's let up 1 run in both games combined, I should say. So we'll see what happens with the Mets. Again, I think I had them as my third team. I think I had Braves, Nationals, Mets. So it's going to be tight anyways. I think the Braves will win the division, but it's going to be tight. Those next 3 teams, even though I think the Phillies will be the 4th team, it's going to be super tight all the way to the end. But I think the Braves will come out on top. I think they're just the most talented team.
Yeah, no, I would agree the Braves are the most talented team. And I'm not too concerned with the Nationals again. Like, I don't know. I mean, their big 3 hasn't pitched particularly well yet at all, but I'm not going to worry about Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin. Elsewhere in the NL, I mean, the Dodgers have played about as well as we expected them. They're just playing extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to say about them. They're clearly the best team in the MLB. It's not even close. I mean, they have David Price coming out of their bullpen, so they're paying him. It's like what, $30 million or whatever it is to come out of the bullpen, not even be a starter. So, they're completely loaded. And I don't even. I mean, Belly. I think he's injured right now. He hadn't even got going yet. So yeah, they're a machine, honestly. But I guess last night, a no-hitter happened. And obviously there was one a week before, but the one last night was Carlos Rodon by the White Sox. I mean, he had a perfect game going into the 9th. 8 1/3, he had a perfect game. Then he hit someone on a backdoor slider. I mean, it's obviously unfortunate that he hit him, but it's not. There's no controversy. People are trying to say that he didn't get out of the way. I mean, he tried to get out of the way. It was a really good pitch that he just didn't swing at. If he swings, he clearly is not going to hit that ball, but it just hit him in the back foot. But he still got the no-hitter. So that he was on the White Sox. So yeah, that was pretty impressive. I was watching the last couple outs of that.
Yeah, I watched the 8th and the 9th. It's unfortunate. As far as like legitimately, there's nothing for me to read into it as like.
It was a great play. The first out of the 9th was a great play to save the no-hitter. At that point, it was a perfect game. But like when there's a play like that, it almost always happens, which is why I thought the perfect game would happen. But you still get a no-hitter. You can't cry about it, I guess. But
yeah, the no-hitter is cool, but a perfect game is just so much more that
I think there's only been, I want to say 24 perfect games in MLB history. I want to say. There's been 23 official perfect games. So that was definitely the closest, I would say. I want to say in the last couple years, I don't really remember anyone getting into the 9th inning with a perfect game over the last couple of seasons. So yeah, that was definitely, I thought he had it. He was, he wasn't missing spots in that 9th inning. He completely had full control. So I thought he was going to get it, but yeah, he hit him but he still got the no-hitter. So, And then the first no hitter of the season was Joe Musgrove of the Padres. That was like a week ago. Yeah, that was also impressive. I mean, he's a guy. I mean, talk about the Padres. I mean, obviously Tatis got injured. Somehow he wasn't out for multiple months. I thought he was going to be out till like the fall. Honestly, by the way the shoulder looked, I thought he like tore like a labrum or tore something in his shoulder. But I think they said he'll be back in a couple of weeks, maybe even earlier than that. So that's huge for them. But I mean, their rotation. You think they get Darvish, they get Snell, so you think that's huge. Like those are the top guys, and then Joe Musgrove, who they also got, kind of went under the radar. He's probably been their best pitcher so far this season. Obviously, when you throw a no hitter, that helps. But yeah, I mean, it just shows how loaded that rotation is, and then obviously their team as a whole is just loaded too.
Yeah, no, 100%. I need to like check my mic. I don't think it's like working. So I like can't hear myself anymore.
Let me see if I can hear you.
Hello? Hello?
No.
I can like kind of hear myself, but I don't like. Like when I'm tapping on it, it's working, but like it's really quiet. Like it's so quiet. So I'm not exactly sure what like is happening. I think I'm gonna be like a lot quieter than you though in the episode. I don't know, and we'll see. But like I sound like I'm looking at it now. It's working. It's just like really quiet for some reason.
Is it all the way up?
I just turned it all the way up, but it was at like what yours was at. I turned it up a little bit, but even right now it's like not that loud, even though I'm like right in the mic. But it's whatever. All right. All right. Well, I mean, did you have anything else to say, or?
I don't think so.
So we just end it there. It's been 35 minutes, not including like the last minute or whatever.
Yeah. I guess if we have nothing else, then yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Unless there's like something we can react to or whatever, then probably not. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if we want, we could talk about like how the NBA was saying GMs and team health officials fear that the compressed schedule is leading to all the injuries. But I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I don't really have anything to say about it, but
yeah, not really.
All right, I guess we're just. I mean, unless you have anything else, we'll just like wrap it up.
No, I was trying to see if I could find something, but
Yeah, I'm trying to, but. Yeah, fuck. Alright. Alright, we can just, All right, well, I think that's basically everything for this episode. We'll just wrap it up. Appreciate everybody who stayed to the end. Brandon, any last words before we?
I guess we'll be back next Monday, Tuesday. But yeah, that's about it.
All right, yeah. Read everything in the description. All right, probably Monday night-ish or Tuesday noon-ish. So, yeah, bye.